Hey guys, what is up? This is Ben Falcon's Media Corner and welcome back to another movie review. And today I'm going to be talking about the 1995 fantasy martial arts action film based off the video game series of the same name, and that is of course Mortal Kombat. Now, Mortal Kombat, this was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, director of the Resident Evil movies and most recently Monster Hunter, which he's mostly made movies based off video games, which I've only seen two of his films, which is this one and his new recent one, which is Monster Hunter, which I've already done my review for that film, so you guys can check out my views of that film if you want to know why I thought of Monster Hunter, the movie itself. And he's made a few movies outside of video games, such as Event Horizon and Alien vs. Predator. And before I get into the story, this is of course based off the video game series of the same name, which basically these games are pretty violent and violent bloodbaths, video games of martial arts we've had before, which back then they were arcade video games, and now they've been reincarnated to basically like new gaming platforms we have nowadays, like say PlayStation or Xbox, as well as Nintendo. So basically the story of Mortal Kombat basically centers on these three fighting warriors known as Johnny Cage, played by Linden Ashby, Liu Kang, played by Shou, and Sonya, played by Bridgette Wilson. Basically, these three warriors travel to this fantasy tournament world known as Mortal Kombat, where they basically have to stop this evil villain known as Shang Tsung, played by Cary-Hiroyuki Tagwa. And basically, all he wants to do is, of course, rule the world. So it's basically up to our three fighting warriors, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, and Sonya, to basically work together to basically stop Shang Tsung's evil plan to basically rule the world. So that's pretty much the story of Mortal Kombat. So for going into Mortal Kombat, I didn't even know much about Mortal Kombat much when I was a kid. Obviously I didn't play the games because I wasn't old enough, because from what I've heard they were pretty violent bloodbath video games of martial arts. But my mom, she has played the video games before. Well, not like every single game of Mortal Kombat, but she has played them before from what she told me when I came across this movie. When I asked her, have you heard about the movies of Mortal Kombat? And she just said to me that she's played the video games. And I started playing a few of the games before. Like I played some on PlayStation a few times with my friends. And they were all really fun games, even though they're extremely bloody and violent and gory. Like there's a lot of blood and guts splattered all over the screen when there's a whole bunch of knockout pow-pows and all that. So just before the new one comes out, which of course we're getting a new movie that comes out this Friday, the new reboot of Mortal Kombat this year, I decided to review both of the two theatrical movies we've had, two live-action theatrical films we've had, which we had this one, and then tomorrow I'll be reviewing Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I just want to do in preparation before the new Mortal Kombat film comes out this Friday. So that's why I'm reviewing the first film today. So I haven't heard much reviews about this film, but I've heard some people kind of enjoy this film, and there's a few who are kind of mixed on this, and there's a few who don't really appreciate this film because some people had one small issue with it, which I'll get into in a minute when I talk about my personal views of what I think of this film. And I didn't even know much of the cast members, except you have Bridgette Wilson, which I've seen her in a few things before, and Christopher Lambert from Highlander, which he was really good in that. And for the director, Paul W.S. Anderson, I don't care much for him at all. I don't think he's one of the worst directors I've ever seen on the planet, like next to any of the directors who are considered the absolute worst. But some of his films, some of them are kind of average, and some of them are just pretty bad. Most of them are just like video game films from what I've heard. But I haven't seen as well from some unoriginal ones as well, but I have seen one of them, which was Alien vs. Predator, which I'll do a review of that pretty soon. And I really like to see Event Horizon because a few of my friends have said the movie was actually I think it's an underrated alien invasion film of sorts. So I decided to give this a watch since I kept hearing a few people talking about this, and of course with the new reboot coming out this Friday, I did watch this at home, and this movie, it's kind of half decent for me, but it's overall, it's obviously not like a great film or anything. It's not one of the worst video game films I've ever seen on the planet. I mean, it's not as worse than since like any of Uwe Boll's terrible video game movies he's done, because he's mostly made video game movies that are really bad, and easily considered one of the worst, easily considered movies that are the absolute worst ever made. But this one is definitely not one of those. Like next to like any of Uwe Boll's video game movies he's made. But this one, it has a few enjoyment I had. There was a few enjoyment I did have, although the biggest problem with it, this film is not violent. That's the biggest problem with it, as well as everyone else had with this film. There's no blood, there's no guts, gore, or anything like that in this film, because it's straight up PG-13, or basically a 12 sort of thing, which this movie just has that. And while, you know, the video games are extremely bloody, which again, I've played played some of them before, and they are extremely violent. But I have played a few violent video games before. But the violence in this film, like I said, there's no blood, or there's no more brutal violence in this film. The violence in this film, I thought, was just, it wasn't like terrible. It doesn't have any worse action sequences I've seen for a movie in history, but there was some pretty entertaining action moments. Although again, there's just no blood or anything like that. That's just my biggest issue with. And the direction for those action sequences by Paul W.S. Anderson, at least it's not like one of his newer video game movies he's done lately, you know, like with Resident Evil or Monster Hunter or anything like that. There's no like shaky cam or anything like that, which again, I'm not really a fan of shaky cam. I can appreciate it sometimes, but if it's too much, I just can't handle them. But for the action sequences, they were serviceable, I'd say, since there were some pretty entertaining moments, I thought, but there was just some issues I did have with it. Mainly it's no use of blood or anything like that in this film, which again, that's my kind of, I think I can guess it's my biggest issue. I'm not entirely sure, because there were some other issues I did have, which I'll get into right now. And like for another issue I did have, along with the rating being, you know, PG-13 instead of being, you know, extremely violent like what the video games were. The writing, I didn't care much for the writing. Some of the writing I thought was just cringe, and I just didn't really like the writing whatsoever in this film, particularly for the character of what Johnny Cage says in the film. It's just kind of cringe. But the acting in this movie, like you got Linden Ashby as Johnny Cage, he was pretty. I thought he delivered a pretty solid performance, but it's just again his writing was cringe. And you got Robin Shou as Liu Kang. I thought he was pretty cool as Liu Kang. And you got Bridgette Wilson as Sonya. I thought she was badass. And you've got Christopher Lambert as Raiden. I thought he was pretty good, but I kind of liked his voice, even though his voice is a bit kind of a mixture of other characters I've heard before. But still, though, I thought he delivered a solid performance. Everyone else, they all delivered solid performances, as well as for Cary-Hiroyuki Tagwa, who plays the villain in the movie. I thought he was solid enough. It's just and as well as the story, and for where it builds up, it's like you can see where it's kind of building it up to, but still, though, the story wasn't awful or anything. It's just the few things I did have most issues with was just the writing was a bit cringe for like the dialogue, and the action sequence, and as well as like the age rating, which that was a bit unnecessary, that was just pointless. But still, though, Mortal Kombat, it is kind of both entertaining, but it's also kind of been not really that good at the same time. I mean, it's not a terrible movie. It's not like a crappy video game movie I've seen before. It's kind of like almost like a bit of a serviceable film, but it's kind of like a mixture of both half decent, and as well as being a bit ridiculous. And I've got nothing pretty much else to say what I think of the film, other than I think it's kind of like a half and half film for me, which I can accept that for this film. But again, it's not like a crappy video game film I've seen, like I said before. But still, it's not like any of Uwe Boll's ones like he's done before that are really bad. But this one, I can appreciate with, and I think it's probably Paul W.S. Anderson's only good video game film I've seen. So again, I've seen Monster Hunter, and I don't want to say what I think of that because again, I've already reviewed that, and you can check out my views on that film if you want to. But still, though, I think this is probably one of his better, one of his kind of good ones he's done for video games. But it's just again for his other video game movies, I just don't really, I don't know what to expect because I've not seen much of the Resident Evil films, but I've only seen Monster Hunter, which, like I said before, but. If you're a fan of Mortal Kombat and if you like the video games and if you've heard the movie before and if you're dying, if you want to see it before the new one, I would recommend it though, just in preparation for the new one before it comes out this Friday. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the 1995 version of Mortal Kombat. So I'm going to give Mortal Kombat 1995 a 3 out of 5. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for my review of Mortal Kombat 1995, and let me know what you think of this movie. Did you really enjoy this one? Do you find this is a bit of a guilty pleasure for yourself? Are you in the middle of it, or do you personally hate it yourself? It's kind of like a half and half film for me, because again, I find it a bit decent, but at the same time, a bit ridiculous. So that's the way I would say for my view of the 1995 version of Mortal Kombat. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for my next review, which is going to be on the course Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I can't wait to review that one for you guys, and especially can't wait to review the new one this Friday. I'm hoping it'll be good. Again, I'm really looking forward to it because from the trailer it looks insane. So again, I'm really looking forward to seeing the new Mortal Kombat. And as always, this has been Foggins Media Corner signing off.